Hi there everyone, I hope you're keeping well and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Kathy Brown, today's guest host. Really delighted today to be joined by David Fleck and Sean Duffy. David and Sean, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm David Fleck. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing and Partner Marketing here at Appspace. So my job is to kind of connect our product team with our customers and translate what our customers are asking for into what our product is delivering. And Sean, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, David. My name is Sean Duffy. I'm the VP of Product Management here at Appspace. I have over 25 years of enterprise software experience, and right now I'm leading the product management team in building solutions that engage employees and provide a fantastic employee experience.
Fabulous. So today's session, David and Sean are going to take us beyond the ghost office, and we're going to explore why good enough communication is no longer cutting it for modern, geographically dispersed teams. We're going to discuss how internal comms leaders can transform their strategy from fragmented pings into a unified source of truth. I think that sounds very grand, that reaches everyone from the corporate office right the way through to the front line. Before we start, I want to remind our audience at home, please ask your questions today using the chat function on the screen. We'll aim to answer all questions towards the end of the session, but we can assure you that any questions we don't get around to answering will be answered after the event. And I'm going to hand over to David, who's going to kick us off.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks everybody for being here today. Great topic to get through, a lot of information. There's going to be a lot of stats, a lot of numbers, but a lot of good takeaways as well and some actionable information. So as you can see, we do have a lot to go through. So we will start just kind of setting this the stage here, the disconnection crisis, as we're calling it here. But what's going on, what's the state of the business, and some findings from our 2026 report, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Next after that, we can get a little bit more tactical. And Sean's going to walk through kind of a 15-minute comms audit, something that you can do to identify a specific area in your organization where maybe information leaks are happening. And then I'll introduce the human-centric tech filter, which is a bunch of words for now, but it'll make sense in a minute. But just a way to kind of ask yourself some simple questions to evaluate the tools in your tech stack. And then finally, we'll walk through a playbook on how you can help connect your digital and your physical spaces and to build belonging and hopefully meet your business objectives. So if that all sounds good, welcome everybody, and let's kick it off with the first section here on the disconnection crisis. So what we'll start with here is the data. We'll look at why communication is struggling or failing at times in 2026 and what the actual massive risk that it poses, not just to your people, but to your organization as a whole. So just to kind of give you an idea of where all this information comes from, every year, Appspace does a workplace experience trends and insights report. We survey over 1,000 full-time employees at large enterprises to understand where their experiences in their workplace are great and they're very happy, and where it might fall short a little bit, and there might be a gap. And then every year we compare those to the previous year to kind of track the trends and see how things are moving. See where experiences or expectations are shifting. And spoiler, expectations have been shifting a little bit. But the common thread that we've seen across every department is a need for connection and collaboration. So if you think about it, that makes sense. We're in a more dispersed workforce than we ever have been before. And that's physical distance that often takes place at a lot of offices and organizations means that people are a need for connection has increased, and that need for collaboration, or at least tools to help collaboration, have changed for what they need. So it transcends beyond just having a desk. It also means the right tools and the right connection to make people productive. So another thing that employees tell us a little bit is that these tools that they have, but are sometimes fragmented, like we said at the beginning, and that can lead to something we call the ghost office. And that becomes their biggest hurdle. Is sometimes if they don't know who's in the office, they don't know how to tell who's in the office, they get to the office and nobody's there that day. So that kind of disconnection and missed opportunities lead to lack of productivity, and it's all about visibility and communication. So that's what we've seen so far. In the chat, I believe Josh has posted the link to the full report. We won't go all the way into the report today, just sharing a couple key insights. But if you want the rest of it, you can click that and download it from our website. So just I'm going to start with throwing some numbers at you here. And when we looked at the employee experience, all the data that we gathered, there was kind of a consistent picture that we kind of saw, and it was a little bit sobering, which is why we chose this picture on the slide here. But what we found to start here is that 72% of the employees said that they feel out of the loop on key updates. So they're not getting the information. They feel like they're not in the know. They've missed the memo, if you will. And 81% said that their organization lacks the consistency of delivering that communication across all the different channels. So if you think about the different types of workers, and we may get into this a little bit more in the future, but different employees are getting their information in different ways. Some are getting it in email, some are getting it through Slack, some are getting it in a mobile app that maybe only that organization has access to, or that team has access to. And there needs to be consistency, because if it's a different message or slightly different version across every different channel, that consistency leads to a lack of context, leads to missed information or wrong information. And 81% are saying that that's a problem. But the most striking thing you'll see on here is 97% say they're actually missing important information, or that missing information actually negatively impacts their ability to do their own work. So this isn't just about being frustrated because you don't know what's going on. This is actually making it harder for employees to do their job. So that's a drag on operations. And so if they're not being able to do their jobs, or they're missing key information across their company, they can't make decisions the same way because they don't have all the info. They can't collaborate effectively because one doesn't know what the other one's doing, or they missed a key project update. And they can't do their jobs to the level that they're actually capable of. And so then if you take that info and then zoom out a little bit at the organizational level, 67% of the employees say that poor communication, all of those issues, those disconnected systems, they feel are putting their actual organization, their full company, at risk of not reaching their company goals and objectives. And that's a terrible thing, because that's not just about engagement with the employee. It's not just about their job satisfaction, although it does make a difference. That is affecting the organization's success as a whole. So that's not just a soft problem of are people happy or not. That is a core problem for the organization that all this is leading to. So let's break down what's actually breaking here and what's happening at these organizations, so that we can maybe find something that resonates with your organization, and then we can talk a little bit about in the future how we can maybe fix some of these things. So the first thing here is we look at fragmentation. So like I was saying before, communication now spans, I don't know, dozens of channels. Think about all the different apps and pieces of software and tools that you go to find information. You're going to your emails first thing in the morning, or if you're like me, you go to your intranet to go find and search for information. Maybe you go to Teams or Slack, or you go to the mobile app. Maybe if you're in the office, there's digital signage on the walls. Maybe you get it in meetings or through word of mouth, or maybe somebody in the field, like a frontline worker, gets it through actual piece of paper. Yes, that does still exist. But most organizations, they don't have a system that's actually connecting all of these channels. Everybody, or there's a different person that is in charge of each channel, and they're writing the information, publishing it there, and each one's slightly different, right? So when it gets there, the content doesn't match, and the delivery ends up failing, and you get this real fragmented experience for our employees. So maybe that sounds true for you at your organization. The second one here is a timing and overload. So a lot of times we're really good at getting the information out, but what's happening is we're getting all the information, all the content, all the important messages are going to everybody all at the same time. So it's not that the employees are just missing the information, they're actually drowning in it at times. So messages arrive too late or alongside all these other updates, and now all of your internal comms, all of your communications are competing against each other for the attention of your employees. So the problem there isn't the amount, the problem is the absence of a true coordination of your content and actual prioritization of when it's going out and who you're targeting. So that can lead to a lot of issues there as well. And the third thing that I've kind of alluded to already is the frontline exclusion. This is not a new problem by any means. So most communication systems are designed for a desk worker, information worker, somebody that's sitting in front of their computer, their laptop for a large portion of the day. And there's quite a bit of employees that aren't doing that. They're out in the field. That's up to 80% of an organization could be a frontline worker. They're getting communication in a much different way. They may not have a corporate email address. They may not have licenses for the intranet. So they can't get access a lot of times to the same info, or they're seeing a lot of the same info that doesn't apply to them, and they're trying to figure out which one is meant for them. And so when communication doesn't reach them consistently in the format that they need, the impact is immediate. It shows up in safety, it shows up in productivity, and it shows up in employee turnover. So if these problems keep persisting, the consequences go beyond inconvenience. It makes employees feel stressed. It makes them feel like they're missing critical information on how to do their jobs. They start making mistakes. Their trust in the organization erodes, and then alignment actually will break down. So it's not just a culture problem, it's actually an execution risk for your organization and for your employees. And then there's hybrid work to come along and made everything even harder. So it exposed kind of these massive gaps. And so what we found in our back in our numbers here is that 55% of employees say their organization struggles to connect the office, the in-office, and the digital experience. So the physical and the digital workplace. So you're always working in one of the two. And a lot of employees, over half, are saying that their company's not really connecting the two for a cohesive experience. So because of that, we've seen collaboration is absolutely suffering. 87% say they report challenges trying to work with their peers and work with their colleagues in these distributed hybrid settings. But the primary hurdle is 44% of hybrid teams lack that consistent messaging between your home and your in-office platforms that they use. And so that leads to kind of that ghost office feeling where at home you're working, you go into the office, you expect people to be there, they're not there, you're missing each other. And 28 of employees say that they commute in only to find that they had no visibility and they don't know where their team is. And that leads to collaboration issues. And that's a communication thing, not just an attendance thing, but it actually is about communication and visibility into what's going on. So, all right, with all that said, that kind of sets the stage of what we've found, and it brings us to our first poll. So we want to look at why is communication falling short. We have a poll for you on the right side. If you go to polls, you should be able to see that, or it should pop up for you, I think. So I'll let those results come in, and we'll try and look and see how it compares to the data that we saw.
I'm so glad to see you mentioning frontline exclusion, David. So I worked for some time in warehousing, and it was poisonous, absolutely poisonous. As a deskless employee, you were expected to use your own device in your own time to access a myriad of messages that you had no idea whether or not they were relevant to you, and you absolutely did miss really important things that you should have known.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was not something I remember with any affection whatsoever.
It's hard. That's it. It's definitely not a new issue that organizations are facing. It's just been magnified over the last few years for sure.
Well, David, you said one thing you said was somewhere around 80% of the workforce can be classed as frontline or deskless workers.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the IT spend for many organizations, it can be down in the low single digits. Some estimates around like 1% of IT spend is focused towards that 80% of employees. So it's really to be expected that there's some form of disconnect there when we're not putting tools in employees' hands.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we do have, we've got a lot of poll results come in, and the leader here, so the question was that our research showed that 72% of employees feel out of the loop. So which disconnection symptom is your biggest challenge? And what we're seeing is the digital noise. So employees being overwhelmed by too many updates is the top one here for. So behind that, we had in second place was frontline exclusion, like we talked about. So those two things I think go hand in hand for sure. So thanks everybody for participating in the poll. We have a couple more coming up. So just a couple more things I want to set the stage before I hand it over to Sean to get a little bit more tactical. But hopefully some of these kind of resonate with you a little bit, and you can find some key takeaways for your org. But I also want to look at how it affects different groups of employees. So what we were talking about was the frontline workers. And so because they're never in their office and don't sit at the computer, they're the most vulnerable to actually missing information and feeling like they're out of the loop. So you can see that 84%, say their organization has to improve frontline communications. All right, well, that says it all right there. That's a huge number. But then 39% say that their comms are inconsistent. So that means if you think about it, 4 out of every 10 employees, frontline workers, are getting incorrect information essentially. And then if you expand that over the course of a year, essentially every frontline employee is going to have to deal with this issue at some time or another. And that's something that we have to pay attention to, and we have to try and fix. And then the last one I want to break it down is look at the younger generations in the workforce. And the truth is they've grown up with technology in a much different way. And so their expectations are quite different among that youngest talent. So 75% of the millennials and 73% of Gen Z feel left out. Compare that to the baby boomer generation, where just 60% of them say that they felt left out. So definitely a lot more in the younger generation. And they have a much lower tolerance for fragmented tools. They're used to having technology that works together. And so if you're using old legacy technology that doesn't work for how they live, it doesn't match their consumer experience, which is shaping their expectation. So to retain the younger workforce, we have to bridge that gap. And you can see 60% say that they see that gap between the digital and the physical workplace. Okay. A lot of stats, a lot of information. I just wanted to set the stage to get to the true hero. We'll get it over to you, Sean, to take us into what we can do here.
All right, that's awesome, David. Thank you. And I'll just add, like on that last slide, another issue that really pops up is the fact that we're dealing with multi-generational workforces. And so our approach to communication can't be one size fits all. We really have to tailor towards the different ways that different cohorts within our organizations are consuming and engaging with content and information. So we've got a better, I would say, understanding now of where our employees are feeling disconnected. So we're going to try and get tactical over the next few minutes and take a look at an audit framework that we can use that allows us to quickly identify where there are specific breakdowns, different points of breakdown within your communication workflows. So let's jump in. First thing that we're going to want to do is we want to map out these communication pathways, right? We need to understand what are all the channels that are currently in use? How is information, how is content flowing throughout the organization? How do we expect our information to reach different cohorts of employees? So we're going to look at how do we identify where information leaks across these various channels in the various tools that we're using, that we're distributing to employees before it even makes it to our frontline employees. So I like to think of this as drawing a map, right? What are all the entry points, the places where information is created? What are the exit points? Where is information consumed? Are there dead ends? Are there overlaps in any of these pathways? Are there areas that are just inaccessible to certain populations of employees? Now, one of the ways that we solve this at Appspace is by allowing communications teams to craft their message once and publish it everywhere, right? So across signage, across intranet, mobile applications simultaneously. So you end up with that consistency in messaging, but you're also having sort of wide dispersal where you can maximize engagement with the widest number of employees. And what we're trying to achieve here really is that, again, as David said earlier, employees are identifying an inconsistency in the messaging that they're seeing, conflicting information. So we're trying to resolve that problem and establish really a single platform that serves as the backbone of our messaging strategy across the organization. So now we want to discuss how the disconnection epidemic surfaces within each organization. And it's going to be different for everybody. So we're going to take a look at some areas where we can see some warning flags, right? Some indicators that are showing that the disconnection epidemic is surfacing. So if we look at an example, if we look at the low engagement that we're seeing in all hands updates, we can take a look at the volume and difficulty of questions raised, for example, at our help desk, right? If employees aren't engaging with that content, they're seeking out that information in other ways. So if our help desk is fielding a number of low complexity, easy, basic type questions, that can be a really good flag, a really good indicator that there's a breakdown in the way that all hands applicable to everybody information is being distributed. Now, we can also see this in the physical workplace, right? We can see this where employees are asking questions or saying, hey, I just didn't know this information. I wasn't aware of this, right? So this manifests in the conversations that we have with employees, whether it's in large group meetings, whether it's in one-on-one situations, whether it's just employees conversing in the hallways or on the shop floor, for example. And this can be a sign that what we think we've established as our source of truth is actually hidden to certain employees. So we might be sitting here thinking, hey, we've done a great job. We've stood up this tool, we've created that tool, et cetera. We've published this information, we've done our jobs. But when we actually start to listen to our employees, there's gaps in their ability to access those tools that we've put in place. So when we're looking to sort of bridge these disconnects, we want to look at some features like broadcasts and alerts. That ability to pin critical information so that employees are more likely to encounter it. It doesn't get lost in that feed, that noise of all of the other communications and discourses that are happening throughout our digital tooling. We can even look at overriding things like signage, right? Making sure that priority messages are prominent. And we'll talk a little bit about how we go ahead and target that later on, but making sure that we're basically hitting those areas in the physical workplace where we know employees are congregating when they're going to be there to help make sure that information reaches the maximum audience.
Sean, not to interject, but I just ran into that today. I went to our intranet. I was having an issue, and then I saw there was a pinned broadcast up at the top that said, "Hey, we recognize that issue. We're working on it," and it was great. And that worked perfectly. It was just a perfect example of this working in real life.
Yeah, and I mean, to tie back to the help desk example, right? Having that ability to surface an issue, like think about working in a manufacturing facility and door number 3 is not working today. And I've got a shipment coming in later today, right? I'm either going to go to the foreman, I'm going to go to someone else. And all of those interactions, while good, while providing that support to employees, they're generating work, right? So the more that you can inform employees ahead of time of, certain issues that are going to impact their ability to do their jobs, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so frontline workers, as we talked about before, they're often the most vulnerable to these information silos, but they can be the most impacted when they miss information. So, the example that we just gave, right? That ability to inform employees of safety issues, of breakdowns in equipment, et cetera. Those are impacting that employee's ability to actually do their work on a day-to-day basis. So in your audit, one of the things that you can ask is, are those teams able to see the information you're sharing in their natural workflow, right? Or are they having to take extra steps in order to be able to encounter it? So have you put in place the physical capabilities for them to see it? Is that information coming across their, peripheral vision while they're walking down a hallway, right? Are there ways that you can call attention to that information so that they're actually seeing it? So we're going to extend this audit, as we've been talking about, beyond just mapping the channels, the digital channels that we're using, and starting to map this into the physical workplace as well. So again, where are your employees moving from the break room to the shop floor? Where are the opportunities? Where are the places within your workplace that you have an opportunity to surface this content and information? So the last step in our audit is really to move beyond the passive display of information. So we're not just checking whether or not these screens are turned on, right? Yeah, great. Okay, the screen's working, it's on, there's information being shown on it. But what we actually want to understand is the information that's on those screens reaching the eyes of employees, and are they able to engage with it, right? Is that content breaking through to be something that they're actually consuming and thinking about and understanding? So, keep in mind, the other sort of element to this is AI that we've been hearing all about the last couple of years. The tooling that we're enabling with AI, it requires data and information. And so throughout this communication process, it's not just about the creation of the content, but leveraging this data in areas such as governance and optimization. That data becomes the backbone of this adoption, right? And providing insights and being able to verify and utilize that content that's accurate and relevant is critically important. If employees don't trust the information that they're being served up, they're quickly going to lose faith in what you've established as your source of truth. So to give a quick summary, we've outlined the following steps in our audit. 1, we're going to map the channels by which employees access information. 2, we need to understand where the disconnection surfaces in our business operations. 3, we need to look at our digital communications and information. Where do they fail that bridge into the physical world for frontline employees? And finally, what data do we have to quantify the gaps that we have currently and verify that the changes we make are having a real impact, that communications are really laying the groundwork for future AI adoption? All right, and I'll hand back to David.
Yeah, thank you. Good steps there. A lot of times what we look at those, so you go through your audit and you think the solution might be just another app, another tool. And it might be you need to change it out. You need to add a new piece of technology. That's fine if that's the answer. But you need to make sure that you're going through what we're calling the human-centric tech filter. So just ask yourself, I'm going to share 5 questions that every leader should be asking to ensure any new tool that you add is actually reducing friction, reducing noise, adding visibility, rather than adding to the noise that is already there. All right, so first thing I want everybody to ask themselves, if you're adding a new tool, if you're looking at your technology, and you can look at what you have today and ask your same questions. First thing here, can I easily prioritize content quality over quantity? All right, so does it help the worker focus, or does it just add more? You said AI before, so is it adding AI slop into their day, right? And you add an AI tool, is it helping, or is it adding AI slop? So looking at, is this quality information, or is it just, hey, I'm getting more out? Because we know that 26% of employees say that they're already overwhelmed with the number of messages they receive. So if you take this human-centric touch, the tool must actually prioritize relevance over volume. So ensuring it's going to the right person at the right time, not just everybody all the time. Because if it does, what happens is you feel like you're getting out a lot of information and you're getting the communications and you're going, well, we sent it, but the workers are tuning it out because they see tons of information all the time. So the goal here is give time back to your workforce. Give them time so where they're not searching and sifting and trying to figure out what's relevant. They just know that when something comes up, it means something to them. They trust that it does, and they don't have to sift through it. And so they're spending a lot less time trying to figure that out and more time actually being able to do their job. So let's prioritizing quality over quantity for the first one. Second question I want you to ask yourself is, can I create the message once? And so what we're addressing here is fragmentation. So what we talked about earlier is all the different channels. And if you have a different owner of each communication channel across your organization, and you have different tools that you're using for each communication channel, you're adding to the fragmentation of the message, and you're adding to that disconnection. And then when you have disconnected tools like that, that's where we see that channel gap that we saw earlier. So high performing teams are using a system first approach where one update kind of pushes across all channels natively. So whether the worker is on their mobile app or they're in front of a digital sign, the message is the same. Now it's formatted correctly for that particular channel, but it's the tools that you're using does that for you. So you can create it once, maybe create it anywhere. You can use AI, you can use different integrations, so that even if you are creating something in SharePoint, it gets pulled into your central hub of communication and then distributed correctly based on filters and information, right? So it knows that this audience gets this message, but this audience doesn't because of their location, their role, something like that. And it doesn't publish it to them. And it reformats it. It adds beautiful pictures. And if it's for visual information on a sign, or prioritizes it if it's something that's critical. So that is where you can create it anywhere and publish everywhere. And now you've added consistency to your message getting across. Okay, next question I want you to ask yourself, does it work with the same across the physical and the digital? And what I mean by that is the physical workplace, that's in office, right? When we use the term workplace, especially at Appspace, when we say workplace, we're referring to not just this office. That's typically what people have said before. What we're actually talking about is anywhere where work happens. That's your workplace. And so we like to look at those as the physical and digital. And so what we're looking for is the technology helping bridge the gap, because there 55% say that they're struggling, their organizations struggle to connect that gap between the two. And you need those experiences to be the same so that one group doesn't feel left out, or when people are going back and forth between the two, they don't feel this disconnected in experience based on where they are. So if your office signage doesn't reflect the real-time digital news, right? You see it all the time where signage is just scrolling through. It was created, that playlist was created, a month or 2 months or last year, God forbid, and it doesn't reflect the news feed. And so that's just getting outdated. Nobody's looking at that. They don't reflect the two. So the digital and the physical are completely disconnected. So we need contextual orchestration and coordination across our organization. And so a connected workplace ensures that that connection currency is shared around everyone, regardless of their location, regardless of their work experience. Next question we have to ask, does it work on mobile? And yes, maybe this is more slanted towards the younger generation. Maybe it's not. I don't know. My dad lives on his phone too. He's a baby boomer. He's texting me and sending me things all the time. So, some have shifted, but the expectations have changed. And mobile is such an important channel, and we can't neglect it. So it's about inclusion. We have to stop designing communication only for people with a laptop, where they just are on there, they've got a nice big display, or they're reading through an email. We need to look through that. 84% are waiting for a frontline experience that actually works for their on-the-go workflow, right? They're in, they're out, they're doing a run, they're running around. And so they're on mobile all the time. Like you were saying before, you're using your personal phone. So designing for frontline and hybrid workers who are also back and forth is the new standard. It's the new expectation. So all the tools you use need to make sure that they need to also work on mobile the same way they would work on a laptop, so that everybody has the same access to that information. So mobile first, doesn't work on mobile. And then finally, which goes to what Sean was just talking about a couple slides ago, is can I get actionable data? All right. And so does your workplace data, it's a strategic asset for you to help you make decisions. But insight only matters if it leads to some type of optimization. So moving from what happened and just kind of looking at the history to, okay, how do we improve? Taking action, making decisions. So we got to track impressions or average time visited. We got to look at all that information to see what's actually landing, not just did it get delivered. We need to understand engagement with the content and information, likes and shares and scans, whatever it is. All of that needs to be used and turned into actionable insights. So that actually allows you to measure really the ROI too of the tools you're using. Are they working? Do humans like them? Because that's who's using them. And then you can prove the ROI. Excuse me. You can prove the ROI to your C-suite if you need to. Easy for me to say. Sorry. It's a good thing that it's up to Sean, because I've got a little something here. So Sean, I'll let you take it away here.
All right. So now that we've kind of looked across where employees are at right now, some of the auditing that we can do internally to identify where those breakdowns are, and then look at some of the strategies and questions that we should be asking. Let's kind of bring all of that together and look at how some high performing teams are using a unified intelligence layer to automate the logistics and protect employee focus time. So in 2026, let's be clear, internal comms is really now powered by a shared intelligence layer. And one of the things that we can do is enabling that intelligence layer to understand the entire employee experience and how the physical and the digital link together. So we're starting to move now from these, a librarian type bots, right? Where I go in, I ask a question, it gives me an answer. Awesome, let's move on to the next thing, to delegates that are actually able to help us get work done. And I'd say one of the advantages that we have at Appspace is we understand the physical context, right? When you look at tools like space reservation, it allows us to have more data about who is in the building, what they're doing, where they're going, what they're going to see on signage. And to go back to David's point, those data points help us take action. They help us make decisions. So we start to shift from just generative answers to employees. Hey, what is my vacation balance? What's our expense policy? To agentic actions that deliver real value to employees on a daily basis. So if your data is siloed and your channels are fragmented, the AI results that you're getting back are going to be low relevance slop, right? What that means is, as David said, the content looks really nice. It looks really polished. It's very presentable, but it's actually lacking in accurate or useful data and information for your employees. And as we were saying, we know employees, 87% of them won't trust or use AI tools if everything isn't well connected. For all of you that are out there and you've been using your Geminis and your Copilots and everything else, you really quickly run into this sort of wall of the answer I get back would be so much better if it could connect to this system, or if it could, consider this other piece of information or this other document. And so we really have to make sure that we have a unified strategy to how we connect data, bring it together to serve these AI tools that we're rolling out. And I think one of the most interesting aspects to this is the actual tooling that you select is really only like 20% of the solution here. The other 80% is transforming your business, right? And so it's how do you manage change within your organization? How do you roll out these tools? How do you connect these systems? How do you remove all of the friction that can come into play when you're now enabling an agentic AI to go in and take action on behalf of employees? And so we have another poll here. Oh, sorry, have I Yeah, poll number 3. Okay.
Yeah, I have to apologize. I got on a roll and I skipped poll 2. So if we get back to it, we'll get back to it later. So yes, we are in poll 3. You're not off.
So let's go ahead. So for this particular question here, let me just jump over to the poll. So 87% of employees say that a connected workplace is a prerequisite for AI utility. Where is your organization today in its AI for internal comms journey?
I remember I was telling a story at an event I was at where I led a roundtable discussion at a digital workplace summit of some type. And this was less than 2 years ago. And at the time, there were organizations that weren't allowed to use AI at all. And there were some that were just starting with it, or maybe they could only use it if it was within their data center and, completely locked down, something like that. And you fast forward to today, which is less than 2 years later, and now you see AI mandates out there where organizations are requiring you to use AI in your workflow, finding ways to use it. What a drastic shift it's been. But it just means that every one of us at a different organization is in a different part of our journey, for sure.
Yeah, and we've seen similar patterns in the past, right? The adoption of internet technology within organizations. IT was very scared to allow corporate machines to access the wider internet. The mobile adoption, which quickly shifted from everyone, here's your device, to bring your own device, right? Like that change happened so quickly. And we're seeing that again with AI, but we're seeing it accelerated so much quicker than we have in the past because the technology is just changing on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
So just quickly looking at the results of the poll here, it looks like the majority of folks are in the exploration phase. So testing AI for content creation and drafting. Some are in the librarian phase and some are in the optimization phase, but it doesn't look like we have anyone yet that identifies as being in the agentic phase. So we'll give you a little bit of insight into where that journey can lead in the next couple slides. So let's imagine a scenario. You're going into the office on Wednesday, and the building, the system understands your schedule and prepares for your arrival, right? So by integrating the space, the physical space, with your calendar, we're actually removing some of that friction that employees experience in going in and booking a room. Which rooms are available? What equipment do they have in that room? Do I know how to use the equipment that's in that room in order to facilitate the meeting that I'm conducting? So one of the nice things is the system can start to suggest desks near your team. So if David and I are both going into the office on the same day and we have a joint meeting together, or there's a project that we're working on, how do we connect the two of us in the physical space in order to complete the work that we're doing? So greater collaboration, greater optimization of time. This type of orchestration, this type of agentic flow can actually help you get to relevant work much more quickly. Let's take a look at communicators. So in the communicator experience, the system can be kind of like a digital air traffic controller for your content, right? If your on-site reach is low, you can push updates to every sign instantly to make sure that there's visibility across your entire employee population. You can also create your content once and use things like Appspace intelligence to ensure that the messaging finds employees, whether that's through notifications, signs, alerts, broadcasts, etc. The system can understand where that engagement is and how to help you, how to suggest how to reach those employees who may not be being served today, and really automate the logistics of that delivery, allowing you to focus on other more important work. And again, this is where the AI starts to go into a little bit of a loop here, right? And we want to avoid that AI slop problem. We don't want to just generate reams and reams of content, right? We still want to make sure that we're delivering high value communications. We're cutting through the noise. We're delivering employees the right information they need. And in order to do that, we really need kind of 3 pillars, as we call them, in place. You need to make sure your data is trusted and accurate. You need to have clear guardrails on how these agentic systems work, what they can, and more importantly, what they can't do. And then make sure that you have relevant delivery, that information is reaching the right worker at the right time. So if I can give you one recommendation, it's make sure you fix your sources of truth first. Before you start rolling out agentic systems, you have to make sure that the information that those systems are relying on is accurate. If you don't do that, you're just going to amplify problems in your existing data set, in the inaccuracies that are there, in the lack of management of content and information. Those are just going to get amplified across the organization. So your connection roadmap for 2026. Stop managing channels and start orchestrating the connections to drive ROI in your organization. I would suggest on Monday, go in and figure out what is your source of truth, right? This is your first step to solving the disconnection crisis. If an employee asks a question, where are you going to tell them to go to get that information? So your strategy is going to be invisible if you don't reach your frontline workers. And you got to keep in mind, like, these workers consume information differently. They use different devices. They have different times in their day when they're consuming content and information. So you have to take that into account. They have different needs in office or hybrid workers. And really bridging these gaps, it turns your workplace communication into a real business advantage for your organization. And so to summarize, everything that we've shared today, from the audit to the tech filters, comes from our 2026 trends report. As David said at the beginning, we surveyed over 1,000 employees to show how fragmented tools impact daily work and trust. And we've, I think, already dropped the full report into the webinar chat. So you can go ahead and grab it now and start reading. And I just want to remind everyone to join us in London this May for our main stage session on bridging the internal comms gap. We'll also have a booth where we can show live demos of intranet, mobile app, and digital signage. And you can see how Appspace Intelligence turns reports into easy to digest podcasts for work using AI narration. So just to answer one of the questions in the chat, right, we have multiple different capabilities that we can show that can help you connect to employees with different needs within your organization. All right, I think we might have a couple minutes maybe for Q&A, Kathy.
We are over, but we have put a prompt in the chat, and so obviously if anybody does have anything, they can pop that in there. But otherwise, I think I do have to rather sadly call us to a halt. I honestly think it's a conversation that we could continue for quite some time, and I very much hope that you guys will come back again and tell us in even more detail. And I shall certainly be around the event in May, so I will come and see you.
Sounds great.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
For the benefit of our audience at home, the webinar recording will, of course, be shared shortly. So do watch out for that link in your inbox. And before we log off, big thank you to Appspace for sponsoring the session. And David and Sean, such great engaging content. I know I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our audience at home has as well. And of course, thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us today. Take care, everyone.
Thanks all.